You know, when I saw that hashtag the Queen is dead was trending on social media, I almost had an heart attack. I thought Beyonce was way too young to shuffle off this mortal coil, but luckily it was just some old bird who did a bunch of colonialisms and looks like me nan. Now to clarify, that's not me saying that. I was just reading what some disrespectful troll account of an horny cat posted on the twit-twat. I'm merely just using that here as an example of just how much the passing of Her Majesty has united our world nations in mourning, and also brought out the very best in us all. And in this video, I will present to you even more examples of exactly how much love and kindness we've all shown to one another in the service of paying tribute to our late monarch. So, just in case you weren't yet aware, on the 8th of September 2022, Her Majesty the Queen of England sadly passed away. I know it may have been easy to miss, what with all 5 terrestrial TV stations suspending normal programming to all tell us exactly the same thing, and going on about it literally all night and making us miss new eps of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which is also sad in itself. I know Her Majesty wouldn't have wanted her passing to have interrupted scheduled new episodes of The Chase, as apparently that was one of her favourites. But anyway, the whole nation is grieving the surprise passing of Queen Liz, who, at the tender age of 96, had so much more to give. Alas, it's always tragic when someone so young passes away, but it's even worse when some ignorant people try to use the death of an elderly lady to score political points and spread racial hatred against her family and lifelong supporters. Luckily though, not one person has succumbed to the temptation to do exactly that. Not even Irish Republicans, what desperately want a united Ireland.
Bruh.
For ours is a kind and loving nation, and each and every one of us have respectfully offered up our condolences with an extreme yet sensitive dignity to the woman who was a dedicated constant in all of our lives. A fact no more evident than on the social media platform of Twitter. Scrolling through the various feeds, it was so heartwarming to see everyone come together in the wake of the monarch's passing, no matter colour, creed or ideological views. But nothing was more inspiring than finding the Black Twitter hashtag, which, from the name, I thought was going to be a warm community of African-based minority types who like to be supportive and spread love and kindness. And look, I was totally right! To take the time to raise public awareness of something called colonialism, even in a period of personal and national grieving, is an incredibly brave thing to do. I mean, we don't hear anywhere near enough about this whole racialism thing. For example, I had no idea you could get away with doing a few thousand murders and legit crimes against humanity if you just say it was simply done under the old repossessing stolen land excuse. I might try that next time the local council refused my planning application to build a man cave at the end of my ex-wife's garden. I paid for that bloody house after all. But anyway, I'm in total awe of how Black Twitter can be strong enough to overcome their grief at the passing of the Queen to give us all much needed morality lectures. And to really choke back those tears to educate ignorant royalists on the evils of looting was just really beautiful and stunning. Though I imagine they'll also be directing this message to the organised flash mobs over in New York and London at some point, when they finally got over the sadness of it all. But let's let them come to terms with this national tragedy on their own time. I'm sure they'll address that problem any day now. Another lovely message what caught my watery eye was a statement issued by the EFF, which stands for the Economic Freedom Fighters out in South Africa, who seem to only want to wish the best for Queen Elizabeth as she takes her final trip up to the palace in the sky, when in the last line of their 2-page statement detailing how their country was plundered by the British Empire, simply said, "If there really is life and justice after death, may Elizabeth and her ancestors get what they deserve." I mean, how stunning and brave! And although I may not be externally black, I can totally relate. And I know just what it's like to constantly whine and cry about being conquered, because I still have generational PTSD flashbacks to when them Roman dicks invaded England and built a bunch of roads, or when the Normans swam over and shot King Harry in the eye. Personally, I can't wait for my reparations from them pizza gobbling Italian twats who had the nerve to come over here and build up all our infrastructure, as well as from those pagan barbarian Norman pirates from Denmark, Norway and Iceland who settled in France and now owe me a free meatball baguette from IKEA. Anyway, there was also another video making the rounds through the various hashtags what I noticed, a clip from around 2013 when our previous controversial Prime Minister passed away, and features some Scottish lady who wished she could use a stake to dispatch Maggie Thatcher like a common vamp from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Any good?
Not a bit of good, not a bit. I'd put a stake through her heart and garlic round her neck to make sure she never come back.
Isn't that a pretty horrible thing to say when her funeral's going on right now?
Too bad, too bad.
Apparently, this is what some folks on Twitter are now retweeting in relation to poor Queen Elizabeth, and I'm just so shocked. I mean, do they really think it's possible that she'll come back from the dead as a creature of the night? Are they really convinced there were parasites living in Buckingham Palace and feeding off old Liz like some sort of leech? They sound like them QAnon loons who are totally convinced the royals are part of some pedo cabal what drink the blood of children to stay young and sharp and live to the ripe old age of 96 or something. What a bunch of wackos! Anyway, it's so heartening to see Caucasian women repressed by white guilt fighting so hard on behalf of her oppressed black brothers and sisters. Like this Annie Bell lady I found during my travels into the Twitterverse, who writes that centuries of trauma are being revealed and healed on Black Twitter, and if you don't get it, just leave them be, and thank your lucky stars that you don't understand the kind of pain that lasts for generations. Ah, what a lovely message what we all needed to hear. After all, nobody understands the generational pain of black ancestors like middle-class white women with no real problems. And how amazing is it that centuries of trauma can so easily be healed just by the death of a frail old elderly lady what looks like everyone's nan? If only all the other critical social issues like inflation or cost of living could be fixed by just bumping off an old granny. Well actually, I suppose if you have one living with you, that could actually work to reduce your household energy bills for a bit. Although one disturbing trend I did spot in the otherwise mostly peaceful safe space of the Twitter bubble was that some were even going after the brand spanking new Prime Minister, after they called her speech boring and her words unworthy of rising to the greatest moments of our nation. Yeah, not like that Churchill chap who called for doing violence on a load of beaches, all to spread peace and democracy. But on a more personal note, I think they should just leave poor old Liz Truss alone. I mean, she must be inconsolable after realising the Queen survived an incredible 96 years and 14 previous Prime Ministers but pegged it just 48 hours after meeting Liz Truss. But to be fair, she shouldn't blame herself. I mean, most people feel drained and suicidal after spending an hour with former Lib Dem activists. And I should know, I almost topped myself after former Lib Donut leader Tim Farron doorstepped me in 2017. But the biggest controversial beef I came across on the Twit-Twat was with a stunning and brave professor called Uju Anya from the Carnegie Mellon University, who bravely brought to our attention in the most stunning way the sheer generational pain and oppressive PTSD trauma of being able to become a middle-class black professor at a top American university. In a tweet, she wrote that the chief monarch of a thieving, raping, genocidal empire is finally dying, and that she wished the pain for this 96-year-old dying great-granny be, quote, excruciating. Now, on the surface that may sound disrespectful, vile and straight up evil, but don't worry because our own university bosses have assured us that her views do not represent the values of the institution and are simply free expression, which is so great to hear. I was afraid she was going to get fired on the spot, just like they did to that Doctor Who looking bloke what didn't want to comply with compelled speech in regards to pronoun use. Or the other professor in Evergreen, who had the white supremacist nerve to speak out against the college asking Caucasian students to stay away from campus for that year's annual Day of Absence tradition. Thank God Carnegie Mellon saw sense and is one educational campus in the land what understands the difference between championing free speech and promoting racist, toxic, sexist misogyny when it comes from straight white males who have the gall to suggest that maybe we shouldn't be segregating students by race, and that it's probably a bit fascist to make people use certain words on consequence of unemployment and even potential arrest like under Canada's C-16 bill. Phew! I was getting a little worried that rules were being enforced unfairly and disproportionately based on skin colour and institutional cultural power. And it seems I was kinda right. I mean, it's one rule for us, and one rule for those toxic fascist racist far-right thugs. Which is best illustrated by that fat Scottish Nazi who taught his dog to lift his paw in the air a few times via a simple manner of Pavlovian repetition all to annoy the shit out of his girlfriend, who only got fined 800 quid and avoided jail altogether. Whereas this stunning and brave lady was dogpiled by racist stans who mass reported her account and got her original tweet removed by Twitter, and forced her bosses to intervene by issuing a public statement ultimately defending her. Man, I just hope King Charles gets this level of lovely well-wishing when he finally pops his clogs. God forbid. Although there were even some few sad souls going after him already. Geezer's barely even got his 105 carat crown on yet. These people are implying King Charles is somehow shady because he once had a picture with tech nerd turned vax expert Bill Gates, and a picture with World Economic Forum founder Klaus Schwab, and a picture with a member of the world's richest family Evelyn de Rothschild, and a picture with confirmed nonce yet somehow knighted Jimmy Savile. I mean, so what if the new king's a member of Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum? And so what if the UK now has a WEF King, a WEF PM, a WEF Chancellor, a WEF Cabinet, a WEF Commons in partnership with the WEF partners European Union and a WEF-backed World Health Organisation run by a literal terrorist? That's not suspicious or worrying in any way. Just like all those other prime ministers and bureaucratic officers across the world who seem to be funded and backed by this organisation, and who seem to carry out the very same coordinated programmes and objectives in total coincidental lockstep. There ain't nothing insidious going on. And it's not like Klaus is going around penetrating cabinets of world governments to implant his own associates loyal to his 2030 WEFI agenda.
What we are very proud of now, the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, is that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are for our actually young global leaders of the world.
You're just a conspiracy theorist. Bigot. But anyway, one point they did bring up was the issue about cash now that the Queen has passed on. Luckily though, the highly qualified folks over at the Lab Bible reliably inform us that the cash bearing the Queen's face won't become worthless overnight, which is such a relief. The last thing to become worthless overnight was my Darish Dinesh live in concert ticket, and also this lady's fish and chip shop. I suppose it may all be irrelevant since they want to go digital now anyway. Which is a shame, because I always like to give a quick salute and wink to Her Majesty's wrinkly mug before I feed it into the gaping maw of a cold machine in exchange for some fags and a packet of sprouts. But I digress. In summary then, I hope we can all see just what a lovely and warm-hearted place Twitter really is. What is full of kind and loving people who are totally not just bots as Elon likes to keep claiming. We can tell from the sheer amount of passion. And with the mostly peaceful political diatribes waged against a deceased elderly lady who invited a load of Commonwealth people over to her country on a big ship to make a new and better life for themselves. And I'll end this video with the wise and witty words of Her Majesty herself. Apparently, she always liked to say, "I have to be seen to be believed." And you know, in a way, she was totally right. She did have to be seen to be believed. Which is why I always demand to see the dough before I hand over the bag of ease. I mean, before I engage in a previously agreed and totally above board transaction negotiated via old style burner Nokias that are in no way violatory of long and established laws on ingestible narcotics. Anyway, rest in peace, Your Majesty.
And thank you. May flights of angels sing thee to thy rest.
Now, if you like it, you press the like it. Want to subscribe it, you press subscribe it. It's cooking simple, man.